asked by the executive team to focus on de-escalation this year, just to help us strengthen our relationships and be able to focus on these intense situations that we've recently been having with COVID and lots of changes that we've been undergoing. So we are really, really excited to have Kit Welchlin with us, and he's going to take us through the process of learning tips and tricks on how to de-escalate situations and people that we encounter every day. He has been, he's done different trainings with a different management companies, so we're really excited for him to bring on that experience. He's a dynamic speaker, and he was definitely handpicked for our company. Our training committee selected him from a group of people, so we're really excited to have him on. I was in his training earlier today, and it was awesome, a lot of information.
So let's take a look at when I got to this slide, how I used this with accuracy. I said the words we choose to use need to be accurate. That was my statement. My explanation is accuracy is the precise shade of meaning. Then I gave you some examples. Are you happy? Are you thrilled? Are you worried? Are you concerned? What are you? Then I reinforced that with Dr. Robin Lakoff did a study, asked men and women how many feelings and emotions they have. Men listed an average of 8, women 14. I think we can be a little bit more accurate. Now look how magical this is. Listener retention is about 25%. We make a statement, explain it, give an example, restate it. It locks down retention. But listening interpretation is also only about 25%. So if we make a statement, provide a unique explanation and unique examples and restate it, we also lock down interpretation. So go to the next page of your handout. We all have 4 intentions in our life: to get things done, to get them done right, to get along and get appreciation. So when you take a look at these paragraphs, when we work on a project with someone and they want to get it done and we like that person, of course, we'd focus on the task. Our communication would be brief and to the point. Problem is we don't necessarily like everybody that we have to deal with. Or when there's someone that wants to get something done right and we like this person, of course, we'd focus on the details, every I dotted, every T crossed. Problem is we don't necessarily like everybody we have to deal with. When someone wants to get along with you and you like this person, of course, you'd engage in friendly chit chat, considerate communications, but unfortunately, we don't necessarily like everybody we have to deal with, and sometimes we avoid them. And then when there's someone that wants to get appreciation for what they're doing and we like this person, of course, we'll recognize their contributions with words of gratitude and do it enthusiastically. But sometimes we have to work with people or deal with people that we don't like, and sometimes we bite our tongue. So what happens when those intentions aren't fulfilled? Well, when people want to get it done, they fear it's not going to get done, they become more controlling, more demanding, and more forceful. And then when people want to get it done right, and they fear it's going to be done wrong, they become more perfectionistic, pointing out potential flaws, potential errors. And then when people want to get along with you and they feel left out, they'll exaggerate their behavior, become more approval seeking. They'll say they have a plumbing problem, and then when the maintenance technician shows up, oh, there's cookies and brownies, and oh, I just made some fresh lemonade. Trying to win the relationship because they're starving to feel that kind of approval. And there might be someone that wants to get appreciation. They've been a great tenant, they paid their rent, they've taken good care of the property, they're a good neighbor, and maybe we haven't, mentioned that to them lately. Well, all of a sudden they quit paying rent to get some attention around here, or they throw an adult temper tantrum, or else they just go silent, and then maybe they, decide to move. So we want to make sure we recognize what those intentions are, and then we can unlock the conversation that we have with them.
In 2014, Kit was inducted into the Minnesota Speakers Association Hall of Fame. He has delivered more than 3,500 speeches and seminars to more than 500,000 people over the past 29 years. And I personally can attest to some of Kit's speaking skills. We have hired him a couple times here through the Western Nebraska Human Resource Management Association, and he's spoken at our conference, I think, 2 or 3 different times now. So I fully attest to Kit. I hope you guys have a wonderful time, really enjoy, and take a lot home from this message. I am going to turn my video off so you just get to see Kit's beautiful face throughout this presentation. So other than that, I will turn it over to Kit. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you for that flattering introduction. My goodness, after an introduction like that, I can't wait to hear what I'm going to say. A couple of things I'd like to clarify in the introduction. I did begin public speaking at the age of 9, and that was not out of desire. That was out of necessity. You see, when I grew up on that hog and dairy farm in southern Minnesota, I was the youngest of 4 sons, no sisters. And I grew up in a position-centered family. Not a person-centered family where everyone would have an equal say or an equal vote. No, there was a true hierarchy in the family where my dad had the most authority, then my mom, and then it went from oldest to youngest, and I was the youngest. So what would happen around the dining room table is my dad would say something, then my mom would say something, then Cabot, Kelly, Corey, and then they change the subject. And I always had a terrible time getting into the conversation. But in 4-H, I could get up in front of a club once a month and give a 5 or 10 minute speech without interruption. And, well, really haven't stopped since. And that's the type of information I want to share with you today. Information that will work if you put it to work. Information, frankly, that's backed up from here to next week with research you can trust. The information I'm going to share with you today, it's not something that came to me in a dream in the middle of the night. I just want to forewarn you, I'm going to make a lot of suggestions this afternoon. I'm not necessarily going to give you advice. I tend not to run around giving people advice. And the main reason I'm not going to give you advice is, well, frankly, Socrates was a man that went around giving people good advice. And I understand they poisoned him. So I'm going to make a lot of suggestions today. So what is stress? Well, stress is really kind of wear and tear caused by life. It's this erosion or corrosion caused by life and stressful events. According to the research by Dr. Leonard Hayflick, the human body does have the biological potential to live to about 135 years. But we don't find very many people living into their 110s, 120s, or 130s. And one of the main reasons is because of stress. My brother, my oldest brother, when he was a child, he had the whooping cough, and my parents claimed they nearly lost him. So he starts out with a biological potential of 135 years. He gets a whooping cough. He's down to 130 years. Maybe when we were going through adolescence, self-esteem was low, stress was high. Now we're down from 130 years down to 125 years. Maybe in our late teens or early 20s, we got involved in some racy relationships. Now we're down from 125 down to 120. Or maybe we bought a small manufacturing company when we were 21. Now we're down to 58 or so. So it's some of those events or choices we make in life that cause this wear and tear of life. It's a physical state and it's a psychological state. Physical state, we get tired. Psychological state, we tend to worry. And the sad thing about worrying is the mind has a hard time telling the difference between what is real or what is well imagined. So when you worry about whether or not you put enough money aside to retire comfortably, even though you're not retiring right now, it kicks us into a stress response. When we worry about whether or not we put enough money aside to get the kids through college, even though they're in grade school right now, it kicks us into a stress response. The mind has a hard time telling the difference between what is real or what is well imagined. So we want to make sure we keep this in mind. According to the Nightingale Foundation, about 40% of what we worry about never happens. About 30% of what we worry about already has happened. We just haven't accepted it. We haven't taken that big old dose of acceptance yet. About 12% of what we worry about are needless healthcare concerns, and about 10% of what we worry about is considered petty. That's the day we don't like how our hair looks. Isn't that funny? That's the day we get the most compliments about our hair. Oh, I really like your hair like that. Really, I thought about shaving it all off before I came to work. No, I like it. Crazy. So it leaves a whopping 8%. About 8% of what we worry about, wow, we should be worried about. The problem is trying to figure out what 8% that is. Now, Mark Twain used to put it this way. Imagine 10 troubles rolling down the road at you like tires. Can you imagine that? 10 troubles rolling down the road at you like tires. Probably 9 will roll in the ditch before they ever get to you. We tend to worry about a lot of things that simply never happens. The problem is the mind has a hard time telling the difference between what is real or what is well imagined. Get out of the rut of routine you find yourself in. Wait a minute, Welch, you said get organized. Now you're saying get out of the rut of routine you find yourself in. I'm sure if you had a stay-at-home order, you probably went for walks in the evening in your neighborhood. I just ask you to go the other way around. It's amazing what you'll see in your neighbors' backyards. The other thing is, it's pretty easy for me, is I tend to wolf down 1 box of cereal a week. So this week I'm eating something called Fruit Loops. I love Fruit Loops. And then last week I was eating Frosted Flakes, which were fantastic. 3 weeks ago I was eating Basic 4, which kind of tastes like silage. And then about a month ago, I had a box of cereal that was almond nut clusters, had a squirrel on the box. And I kind of wonder if it wasn't for squirrels, because it took about a week for the roof of my mouth to heal. That was pretty coarse stuff. But that's how I kind of live it up a little bit. Take a different route home from work every once in a while and go, look at that, another Quick Trip. Wow, another Holiday Station, another Casey's. Woo, but just make some minor adjustments and get out of the rut of routine you find yourself in. So what controls our time? Well, 40% of the stress we feel is caused by poor time management, and we have to identify what are those tasks or activities in which we have total control, what are those tasks and activities in which we have some control. Now, tasks or activities in which we have total control are very few. What we eat, I've never accidentally eaten anything, and I'm sure you haven't either. Whether we exercise or not, everyone asks when you're going to lunch. No one ever asks when you're going to go exercise. What we say, I don't know if you're like me, but I spend most of my time biting my tongue. Maybe what we do for our career to a certain point. Our attitude, I think we have quite a bit of control. What we wear, unless it's a uniform. Now, tasks or activities in which we have some control, everything else in our life, we just need to take some of that control back. So historically, there are three key drivers of change: technology, information, and people. Now, let's throw in a pandemic. So change is first, and then transition takes a little bit longer. And when we talk about transition, there's actually 4 stages. Transition starts with an ending. Problem is, we really don't like endings. It was really nice 6 months ago when I came to work and I was completely competent and completely confident. Now that's been adjusted and modified. But we push through that. Then we can't go back to the way things used to be, not quite sure how they're going to be. And we go into what we call the neutral zone. The neutral zone is kind of like nighttime between yesterday and tomorrow. Quite a bit of anxiety and a lot of hand wringing during this stage. But at some point, we have to make a decision and we launch a new beginning, how we're going to provide our services, what's going to be the new policy and the new procedure. But through those 3 stages, I also want to make sure you take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, it's going to be very difficult taking care of others. Some people make a big deal out of little things. I had a mentor in the 80s that used to call this pole vaulting over mouse turds. You better make sure you stake your career on the most important issues and not the petty issues, but really make sure you realize what's most valuable use of your time. Psychologically disengaging from your work, it's kind of the self-talk where we say to ourselves, I have to do this, I must do this, I should do this. Not very motivating. I get to, I want to, I look forward to. Changes our attitude, changes our actions. Some people avoid new challenges, but I tell you what, change is a full contact sport. You got to get in the game to develop the skills you need to be successful in your career. Also want you to exceed internal, external customers' expectations. See yourself as a service center. What do your customers do? How do you fit in their picture? What are your customers' needs? And what is it that would please them, delight them? And how can you contribute to their success? When I was in manufacturing in the 80s, I used to listen to a tape series called Lead the Field by Earl Nightingale. And on my way to work, I would listen to this one segment of the tape that said this: if you would spend just 20 minutes a day thinking about how you could serve your customer better, you will lead the field. And wouldn't that be great if we just thought about that for 20 minutes? How could we serve our customer better? Visitors stopping by, stand up, don't sit down. Tends to cut the conversations in half. Telephone calls do the very same thing. Ask what's the point questions. How can I help you? What exactly is it that you need before I hang up? Will there be anything else? Mail and email, you have the 4 Ds. Do it right away. If it's 2 minutes or less, delete it. See if they meant it. Delegate it to somebody else. See if they'll do it, or you can defer it and send back an email or let them know I will work on that Friday afternoon between 1 and 3. So do it, delete it, delegate it, or defer it, but let people know when you're going to finish it. This is the bottom line. In 1 minute, I can change my attitude. In that minute, change my entire day. I don't know, maybe your entire life. And if I was an actor, I get paid to play a role. Guess what? At work, we get paid to play a role. I'm just giving you some of your lines, some of your stage directions. Now all you need to do is play your part.